The front rows, if people in the back want to try to grab, like there are a few spots over here and over there as well. You're also welcome to come forward and sit also on the edges of the room, at the back, wherever you're comfortable. Okay. I feel there's a lot of people in the room that haven't seen each other in a long time, and there's a lot of catching up to do. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to the Poetry Project. My name is Marina Arstaños. I'm the program director, and I'm extremely happy tonight to welcome Anselm Berrigan and Cedar Sigo. Woo! It feels like a very, a pairing that's meant to be. Cedar's coming from out of town, hasn't read here since 2017. I think Anselm also hasn't read here in a while, so welcome to you both. Before we begin, a few announcements. We have exciting things coming up at the Poetry Project. Next week, Nazareth Hassan and Ryan Skrabelak are reading on Monday. Yes. And on Wednesday, Jennifer Nelson and Roberto Tejada will be reading together. And Roberto is also joining us from out of town. So please come back for that. Okay. I don't think I have, oh yeah, there are books for sale, absolutely gorgeous books over there at the table. Sirens of Atlantis and Don't Forget to Love Me, both by Wave Books. Grab a copy, there are a few left, I think. And yeah, I think that's it for announcements. So Cedar will read first, Anselm will read second. There will be no intermission, so please stay in the room. Don't go away. There, if you need a bathroom break, there's a bathroom, all-gender bathroom on the first floor, or an accessible bathroom on the ground floor. If you need to get there, let me or anyone else on staff know, and we'll open the door for you. But other than that, yeah, that's it. And that's the program for the evening. I will introduce Cedar. Cedar will read, and then Anselm will read. Okay? So, Cedar Sigo is a poet and a member of the Suquamish Nation. He studied at the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics at Naropa University. He is the author of endless books and pamphlets of poetry, including All This Time, Wave Books, Stranger in Town, City Lights, Expensive Magic, 2 editions of selected writings by Ugly Duckling Press, and most recently, Siren of Atlantis. In 2022, he received a grant to Artist Award from the Foundation of Contemporary Arts. He has taught all over the country, including the University of Washington, Bard College, Washington University, Naropa University, and the Institute of American Indian Arts. He lives in Lowell, Washington. Sirens of Atlantis is a gift. Let me explain why. There's planetary collapse, and there's a slow demise of our own small bodies. And sometimes, at the juncture of these 2 dimensions, there are new beginnings within what seems to have already ended. This is where Sirens of Atlantis proceeds from. A slow-moving recurrence, an emergence allowing for another kind of wonder. One that isn't innocent the way beginnings tend to be. One that knows that this world has already collapsed. That, quote, civilization, or whatever that means, is already buried under the sea. A beginning that knows that although, quote, the Earth is a failed planet, end of quote, yet that simultaneously reminds us that, quote, rehearsal itself becomes a ceremony. In July 2022, Cedar suffered a stroke. He began to write anew shortly after, training himself in translating perception to language. The poetic form whose history he maneuvers with intimate knowledge is exposed in archival charts, revisited in, quote, otherworldly derangements. Reading this collection is like reading the canon against itself, writing with history, yet also disrupting its continuum by realizing that perhaps the continuum itself was never sequential, or that history in its Western formation is like perfume on charcoal, end of quote. If Siren of Atlantis takes us on a journey, it's an odyssey without homecoming, arduous in its process, yet punctured by luminous observations of the mundane. By reading it, we become more lucid, more attuned to particulars, even if, as Cedar writes, quoting René Char, Leaves of Hypnos, quote, lucidity is the wound closest to the sun, end of quote. In this collection, mythology and its figures have been dismembered under the pressure of planetary collapse, yet reassembly is no longer an option. There are other options, ones that forgo the illusion of repair. What would we repair anyways? Sirens of Atlantis offers something else, a slit, an opening where counter or semi-mythological worlds are still possible, where the body is rebuilt, quote, within a passage of light, where, quote, reimagining can take place at the root of time, and where we might finally ask collectively, quote, what about the word ceremony? Please join me in welcoming Cedar Sigo.
Let's see how this works. Okay. Now, let's see. Does that seem good? Okay. Hi. I just want to thank Maureen and Anselm and Jackie, Simon, and Brian. I first read here in 2002 with Ed Berrigan, and I did the most awkward thing. I flew all the way out from San Francisco, and I read for 12 minutes and sat down, like John Wieners or something, and offered no explanation. And so I'm just glad to be back. And I just didn't know what I was supposed to do. But let's see. Today is my partner Brian's birthday, and so we've been celebrating all day, not too much. But I thought I would start with this poem. It's called Whims. Okay. This is called Whims, and I ripped the form off from Diane de Prima, a poem that was never collected. It's just in some random magazine from the 60s. Whims. I drew a French mustache onto a John Cage postcard. I dreamt a circular squirting flower onto Morton Feldman's lapel. I strung a torn taffeta gown up and down John Wiener's. I handcrafted a Rolex onto the wrist of René Ricard. I spun a haunted pendant for the edges of Anne Waldman. I stamped and numbered an opium pipe for Gregory Corso's private room. I handwrote a Ouija board for C.A. Conrad and set it outside the door. The sun came up wet and bright red. I carved a two-man canoe for Brian and myself. And now I'll read from Siren first, and then I'll read a bunch of new things, longer than 12 minutes. Okay. Oh, this is the order. Okay. The Pursuit. Oh, right. This book starts with a quote by H.D., and that feels important. And there's a tarot card facing the text, The Lovers by Salvador Dali. And the text is from Helen in Egypt. I stood indifferent to the rasp of metal, and her eyes met mine. You say I could not see her eyes across the field of battle. I could not see their light shimmering as light on the changeable sea. All things would change, but never the glance she exchanged with me. The pursuit. We stomp in as they all turn. We drop our bunch of daisies, paper, and string onto the floor. The lovers, a double-girded myth at my rough sleeve, where the usual sets of syntactic arrangement await a sleepless timbre. Thin and melodious melodrama, but kept without occlusion, a spiral showing off passage. Seems like all my work is commissioned now, like I'm being embalmed. Or John Wiener's once writ, girdled in gold. I become taxed, a bit more at Land's End forgetful. A neglected gown gone to scrap through daylight's sordid window. The gold of doll's hair, a pair of scratches I had tried to sweep up. Painting the flame-eating velvet retardant back onto mountains of crowns, a largely crooked offing. The sun stands pliant. We hung its canopy silk overhead to steady the lens during contact. The darkening of the doorframe, we hope to catch that, the want that is present. Follow me down through the locks to pick each lily as sharpened, the pinning of the sandpaper hat to the ace. Dreams replay through the pick in a line, its armor each to its own internal breezeway. His shadow hides one shoulder cut out from the dark, handheld rasp with sky sprung, stars embarrassed. I stumble onto a quiver, there is no key. And this is the title poem, Siren of Atlantis. I've strayed too far off the block for mine own kind, and writing is not necessarily editing right now if it's the amusement of disguise over disappearance, if it's become all about dressing well and getting back to gallerists while still in my plucked helmet storming about. Is it a generative loneliness? Like rebuilding my body within a passage of light? Is this the right key for the empty apartment? Jay is reading Valerie Larbeau in A Tangle of Light at springtime. Which specific title escapes my vision, but the platinum tip of my tail is underwriting every emotive and syllabic outburst, every instance of enraged punctuation and jealousy over not sleeping over, where there are no intended mangers to begin with, where I am to be aired out prior to introduction, privy to his incredible feats of disappearance carried off in the alleyways of a Greenpoint night. I bow my staff upon a skinned knee, happy to be a so-called songwriter again, a little something coming in, whisking it all up, draped in fat lines down a dark room, slamming shut the so-called atmosphere of music. I wanted to read a little bit from Guard the Mysteries, just a page from a book of lectures from 2021. And this is the last lecture in the book, and it was an attempt to sort of break down the components of my poetic voice, a phrase I sort of hate. But the lecture is called Shadows Crossing, Tones of Voice Continued. And I'll just read a page from this. This lecture begins with a quote by the poet Audre Lorde, taken from an interview in 1992. What I leave behind has a life of its own. I've said this about poetry. I've said it about children. Well, in a sense, I'm saying it about the very artifact of who I have been. I'm not sure what compels me to attempt this breakdown of my own poetic voice. It's the first clue I have had toward any sense of autobiography or how one becomes mixed up with and eventually possessed by poetry. It seemed easiest to separate this venture out into 3 sections: music, image, and ending finally with history. Recent history, as well as being placed back in First Nation time. These are all components of the overall voyage, the knocking together of ships in their harbors at night. Sometimes all 3 of these components come sailing into the poem to shadow one another, and sometimes they visit separately as crystalline starting points. When I find myself slipping into writing poetry, a certain tonality seems present and beckoning as a portal. A handful of dead silver tinsel is tacked above the rusted doorframe, waving in a slight wind. The stray isolation chamber would be another apt description, but it can start in such a hurry, dependent on reaching toward scraps of paper when dead ink pens and broken pencils surround you, scribbling frantically on the back of bills or speaking jumbled notes into your nearly dead phone, hoping that later on these notes will trigger a certain manner of address that might carry you through the end of a new piece. I do not read music, nor do I play an instrument of any kind, though I have been accused more than once of singing my poems. At first, I was slightly put off by this description, thinking my accents, silences, or pauses within a line to be fairly subtle. But now I think I know what it was meant by this. I never let the music of the line dissolve completely, and those edges, though always fading fast, will attach themselves to the next island of words, but without ever dying away completely. Every utterance is overlaid and connected acoustically in performance, no matter the mists and miles across them, as John Wieners once wrote, what we would traverse to be together. I don't know why that sounds more intimate than poetry. Meanwhile, I count on the fringe, the armored knight, the right shirt, the reckless stain, a drained look from the barman. I sense a shift in the level white of his eye. Grime is a coat painted in duress, fearing occasional thunder, sloshing through the bathwater of a joyously drunken voice, its flailing soft crust. Words without vision are deprived of stability. This one was definitely written in New York. The Endless Fragment. It was a Dick Ghost genocide. It was a Beastie Boys hotness I hadn't seen before. It was a full-on panic, a rooftop escape in the dead of night. It was a not-so-secret morning kiss on the rooftop. It was a romantic ghost story of old New York, with the streets full of carts and stalls and hooks catching. It was a matchbook posing as a book of poetry. The opening page was blank and bright baby blue. It was a songbook worth billions but stuck in 3 changes. It was a book of prophecies braided with random clerical work, lists and abandoned bits of memoir, solitary pleasure. And this was a poem I wrote for Bernadette Mayer while she was still alive, I swear. It's called Star Jasmine. Did you know there is still a bathhouse in Troy? A handful of the guys swim over from Albany, apparently. Have you had any real long-term trouble sleeping? On Sleep from Indigo Bunting is a masterpiece of unflinching clinical precision and humor. Are there specific things that happen in a poem that can prevent it from becoming a sonnet? Besides stanzas in meditation, which is your all-time favorite work by Gertrude Stein? Mine is Ida, grand outings and shopping and small dogs in concentric circles, another Valentine inscribed in secret. Did you ever return to Lenox after the period detailed in Piece of Cake? How many utopias remain in your closet? Drowsily sitting around, half watching, she tried working more desperately despite the synesthesia. The light in the cave grew yellow and began to move about uneasily. There was a flash and a rumble of thunder which were heard from this inner room. The other poets were on their feet, gathered together in the corner. They frequently consulted one another, and from the opening of the cave could hear the guards stationed there. It was her willingness to transcribe throughout a condemned hall of mirrors, clutching the camera. We will organize readings in the street, screenings, Christmas on Earth. Ed's shadow filmed as a spider unleashed in a swing. Rather tired xylophone, frantic strings, bats and pangolins, entwined scarab. The odd rainbow skinned throughout history, left wobbling in carbonite particle boards, rotted out, glistening, restorative liquid. 5-page dreams left open, then the requisite field, never blank. Morning fed on the light against aluminum rooftops, very many layered. Tending to the red thread thrown within the garden, she tracks its estrangement and cooks down the spoils, clips innocent roses from the tiny bronzed bush. A lava-like fountain has lost its head, and the registration of the frame warps. Her tones enraged dissonance, factoids deflation, the polar star with gold leaf backing, blinding sensational crowds. The delicate cranes shall drink from the milk of black nylon as they refuse to drink the scotch. A ghost of star jasmine loose in the basement night, embroidered with pearls. And feeling outmaneuvered, I stood up Nathaniel Hawthorne over the simple fact of sleeplessness. I left Melville dangling over an expanse of cold gray ribbon, imperceptible breeze blowing him back. It was later a filthy dream-like seascape left to rot upon a wall of solid buildup. A narrow branch of barroom lights. Orange trees were crowding the midnight sands till Corfu, blue city of the oranges. A woman was climbing due east into my backyard of blank stars, the language. And one more from here, then I'll read some new things. This is called Stranger Full Text number 2, and it was a commission to write a poem about a piece by Glenn Ligon, and they let me choose the piece. I toss my stencils to the neon fire and begin to build, stacking obsidian dust, a text that betrays the shape of a tone, a semblance of pitch, the opposite of rubbing down onto a headstone. The mirage of white dawn on treated black, wavering then solid states, hovering over the exact spot where the sun strikes a songbook in tablets, wandering the edge of a crypt of lines and having to carry them all back, still unseen. Before every reading, I was asked to quietly rebuild the field of composition, wood and thin wire, but always in a public corner. The audience was allowed that tiny bit of footing before demanding my disappearance. Restricted to the few syllables that I could float through the door, more of a crook in the mouth, the sweep of the tongue that floods the canal. The water was a single cursive, crossed-out line, keeping language lit and locked up, bronzed or betraying its wear pattern, a galaxy spiked with mist, cold tin type, clouded red with black. I fashioned the gate toward one arm of dystopia, the concrete index sold off as bits of poetry, a system bent on interpretive orchestration, the stacking and rubble of debris, then scoring its outline. All slivers angled toward the beloved, sparking the end of the tip of the night, The light never quite settles. Oh, I lost my tissues. Okay. I'm going to read a couple poems for Alice Notley, not consecutively, but this is one of them. It's called Stone Portal, 3 Rings. And the first line is in quotes. It must have been Alice that said this. Speak through your worn-in mask of syntax. Fog thins out from within the upstairs carpet of flowers, darkening blue, albeit closer to clover than any lupin or Douglas iris crowded in. Oh, I can't think. Reflections on the trenchant, saw-toothed flow of music, the pink strands of oil combing the movement of forgotten puddles, falling like cliché from a late canvas or any extant aluminum frame. Just reeking of piano's enunciation, it should hear itself sometime. When the demands of quietude are set, we celebrate the blurting out and furtive creeping horn of random nights. A violet tensile head's retraction, my God, with her locks of hair in early lucite clouded, with her jewelry sets of mourning and exposures clouded on glass under horse and cart. The mirror is worn down in odd spots because of a hidden torch. The recitations are allowed to emerge point by point by point, chords alongside incredibly moving commentary, nearly joy. The black arts and poets' theater stare into utopia simultaneously. Hallowed music tightens the air, as always. We are allowed palatial structures in obvious lean-to fashions, a thirsty horde. There was neither enough money nor applause. Too thin all around, worried moans of audience participation. They bring the lights down just before the intro is mangled beyond truth. All 3 faces, but never all at once. What wrecks of the mind await? Why does she hold us here? The sand as a crypt, its nod toward agitation was straight up masochistic. Disparate stadium buried, translation is a golden shipwreck in a shallow pool. The delicate details of correspondence will be my undoing. I just fall through the wellspring, bomb unusual haystacks of figures. Repeated lancing of story-based parts goes on unabated. Lovers lie askance at the grass, the dread of inversion oncoming. A ring of pawns kept windswept, white lilies encrusted, scent of wax, hold the music. Does anyone have a tissue I could have? Huh? No, just for my nose. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. This is called The Library. This is written after my first visit to Harvard. I almost sat down on Emily Dickinson's desk upstairs. It was so like a stool, the highest gloss. I saw Keats in hallowed script clinging to sheets of onion skin, a brooch locked behind glass, inscribed in reverse, the wayward clock for garnish. I read a Rilke sonnet drafted in duress, earmarked Gwendolyn Brooks, we sing sin, capitals left on a whitewashed wall, one loose streamer trampled in silver, left to shine reflective and wet. Metaphysical life. Burned through the electrode, never touching the metal. The sharpest star is converted to the arena of the poem. It begins to dictate one's taste, the free-floating nightmare, itinerant star power. A dropped halo has detected the magnetic field. Its propulsion is set to low just to make it palatable and innocent to the sensitivities of a night sky. The spark lies broken and curling its tail. Starlings fuss in aspen yellow, weave of 3 random clouds a transcription of mind. flat scent of trillium, the deep lining in its leaves. Dodos and golden geese impress themselves, drinking up the randomly wet diamonds. And this is a sequence of tiny prose poems for Norma Cole. It's called Painted Sideshows. The cloudy gray river holds a boat incidentally. One boy and a girl scurry up a hillside to a noisy automobile, grimy dust wiped angrily away. The wings of a passenger's hat are barely contained under the roof. The boatmen carry the accident up the hill wrapped in a long dress, blackened boots first. We are in pursuit in bowlers and cufflinks, no music to guide the outer feel. The white truck is hijacked in broad French daylight. Men in suits pull another body into the maze. All the alarms in the safe go off at once. My body lies in strict profile, hands held flat like a wooden angel begging for mercy and delight. A crude drawing of the life I fled. Our distance has dissolved. All we need is a little air and correspondence of lines. Blank spots to drop in between swells. Enough coverage to show each of the blocks as numbingly separate. The lovers pass the gate with their hats in hand, but it's turned so cold, I can't run down in time to meet them. The sky is streaked and for some reason never developed. A metal sphere fills with curiosity. Its mortar is led quite a distance down the wall. Some dream reversing itself outward. Such was that vision or quick absorption of his confession. It was clear that we should part. He had been bathing in the terms and remarks of far away. One of the men reflected kindly on a hotel across from the green watchtower. I invaded through the front desk and bent over the man scribbling on a drawing table. Chalices seemed to come alive, enormous smiles, and in the doorway, the basic exploding weapons, their figures leaning back at a slant, dressed in fumes. It's such a lovely night, let's drive right through. She noticed tiny slippers of rain turned aside among flat grass, a continuous dull thud from over the fence, narcissus missing from the squarish green pond. I noticed my own volcanic notations. The white rose stands to admit us beyond its immediate temple. The caves overhead will be blue and brown, spun from ordinary silk. A set of cards upturned dictate the tonalist air. The lovers smear the daylight in their rush. Reclining marble, resplendent face of rubble. I didn't catch the disconnect, a visible blade between them, squaring the path, fingering the charm, leaning onto the flower beds twisted, fencing and facing away. And I have one more poem. It's also for Alice. And it contains a line that Alice wrote, "The dead are working the universe, they're in its shifting walls." And then the beginning is really obvious for all Alice Notley fans. It's called Red Coat, Gold Angel. I began as a stiff narrative storytelling poet and ended as a pool of gasoline and water catching sunlight. I began as a student librarian and ended as a drunken, lonely playground teacher. I began as a formal sonnet and ended as a razor-cut gown hanging in a public toilet. I began as a watermelon-colored mountain and ended as a rainy granite quarry outside Seattle. You think you can peel my poetry zines away from my hardback gold leaf editions? I can allow for a cold rubbing of the fossil within. The Xerox light has been left on all night. It's misty in the dream. Grab my rented Parisian suit, stuff the tinfoil into my handbag, leave no doomed note, no golden numbered address, get on the train that pulls out green and backward. I'm not sure that they will know my intention. Rocks in my throbbing head, screws that hold my lungs together pop out with embarrassment, the sound along the floor that I will not be getting back. I expect to swim a random channel, fall in and out of pitfalls, romantic and financial tombs. Never hope, it all moves along the glass without the hand ever punching through. A black beetle runs across white stone. I drown in the bare grass beside it. The tick of the clock is an ant's leg torn from its body repeatedly. The Scotch broom chokes out the hillside, and the fact that it flowers goes unacknowledged. The fire of the inner orange petal is left hacked to pieces, the clouds like trailing fog. It hides the side door to the glacial mountain. The waterfall of clumsy ice will not be allowed out tonight. The trees around it absorb the nervousness inherent in this light. The dead are working the universe. They're in its shifting walls. They arrange the cobalt violets to break out like glass from behind the tundra. I can't see it. That is, in fact, the first sound. It forms a silver thread that we burned and let cool. The pieces left twisted to winds along the ground. The pull of collage is evident in its not holding my hand ever. Are the lines of cinema too frozen and straight? Are we hounded toward our rearrangement? The dead are stuck reading scraps of our future, a soap opera convoluted and held up outside of time. But each paragraph is shown into its straitjacket. I fit miraculously into an odd sample size. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cedar. It was so beautiful. Okay. I will now introduce Anselm. Anselm Berrigan is the author of 10 books of poetry. Most recently, Don't Forget to Love Me. He is the current lecturer for the Bagley Wright Lectureship and worked at the Poetry Project between 1998 and 2007 as volunteer, program director, Monday night series organizer, Wednesday night series organizer, and artistic director. He also edited What is Poetry? Just kidding, I know you know, interviews from the Poetry Project newsletter for Wave Books. Okay. Anselm was my first writing teacher, but he didn't teach me how to write. I don't know if I'll ever learn that, but I did learn from him that writing, an aggregate of influences compounded into somatic language, forming improbable ideas demanding to be expressed in order to say something both absolutely essential and utterly irrelevant, happens elsewhere, somewhere in the orbit of the book, in community with others, handwritten on a piece of paper, across a Zoom screen, here in this very room sometimes, and always in conversation with the child you once were. Reading Don't Forget to Love Me, I absorbed the variety of forms, virtuosic switches and register, and visual arrangements signaling a process that's injected with presence and life, and also something else like its opposite. Quote, I don't think you can really prepare for missing someone, and then you can, and then you can't, and that absence, in order to be itself, is always something else. End of quote. Poetry, perhaps, is always gesturing towards something other than itself. I'm admiring what goes on in Anselm's head, the assembly of poets and artists that live there, influences that are mostly friends and family, many of whom are in this room tonight, with and against whom he sharpens his voice. That voice, its persona and modulations, its caustic tone, irreverence, tenderness, humor, vulnerability, resignation, and suffused anger, is both what holds this collection together and also the very apparatus through which it unravels. Don't Forget to Love Me, in Rene Gladman's term, is both, quote, narrative and anti-narrative, made in language and unmade or pre-made by it. A line of argument might carry itself through to its logical end, but is also interrupted materially through language, which Anselm never fails to estrange from itself, sometimes to the point of non-recognition. But he also injects the substance of language, its inner liquid, with longing and humor. And that's rare, to make abstraction feel close and intimate. This is what I feel when I read Anselm. A lot of emotions. But Don't Forget to Love Me isn't exactly asking for what it appears to ask. The title's injunction addresses something larger, more global. The you of a world afflicted by a pandemic, the precarious you of the adjunct artist deprived of resources. Capitalism, by definition, only loves a few. It will, at every turn, forget to love you. Anselm's disarming, quasi-pathetic plea has me thinking about love, its debased status. Anselm invites us to rethink love by showing us what language can do. He insists things can be reconfigured if we want them to be. We should all be angry, and we should all be pathetic. We should all read Don't Forget to Love Me. Please join me in welcoming Anselm Berrigan.
Thank you, Moran. I can't believe you paid enough attention to my work to even say all that stuff. And thank you all for coming. I have to say, I don't recommend fracturing your arm a couple weeks before having to give a reading. But, thank you all for being here. And, all right. I have some things to This poem is called Degrets. Splatters of Picasso at hitting into double plays. Wait, can you hear me? Does that sound okay? All right. Splatters of Picasso at hitting into double plays. An angry sub-centimeter lesion sound dictates a letter. Limited time offer insta-cocoons into bloom luxuries. Sporty and parents. First came the archive. Then this next one I wrote tomorrow, sling-enabled, on a 2-scale map of our local galaxy cluster. But the drone's orbit misdelivered its astral package. Sorrow's bleed space queered the nudge. The unopened toy sewing machine went out for surgery. Brief company colored in how to feel. The regular season cuddled in detached corners. The blurb borrowed a fin. The dunghill bummed a mouth breather. The multiple pants the tranquilizer. The I left my shell collection scattered by prescription to rearrange purple plastic bowls of birthwater for dolls. Wintered on. Fruit flies landing in rashy spines. Unavailable's gonna have to leave a message. All items loaded. Skeleton snoozed on mantle. Little blue-ribbed fuzz mammoth enters the about part of the combine, eats it, sharing the shuffle, not the potty. Unassailable's gonna hasten to leave a menace. All refusals in box in bed. In the screen capture inflected by red. Degrets. Helicopters break the sky into rooms. Sonic interiors short on implacable angles report myself to graphite, food-tasting lines, walls, and red stencils. The raft shaft, cousin container, not divided by radar reflector. I should hurl my glasses from this ferry, but I really can't see shit without them. Eek serve claw nebula bats pillars of creation into panonymity. For Eddie's birthday, we took the life vest out from under his seat. Somebody should iron this. Date me. Dare me. Dare me while your periodic tables in neon. No gore, screen time for handwriting, which, a la Bigfoot, freaks the scene. S-E-E-N. That conservation intern cleaning your head remains unpaid. Someone says disembowel the vessel. Every time I start a letter, portal appears to bobbing skyscraper, silver guy in jeans and olive tie asks immobile tourist if he's a cop. Sets up silver guy shop at Bleeker's Mulberry 6 stop, room with interior chat. Room licks room where guitar folds into room with no privacy, imagined me. Starry, white, bunting, night blue, held. I hear the old wobbling floor for sale. Crane hangs crate in front of box of sky. I drop like a cat from monkey bars, June says. A severe inability to make contact. Let's wave remains empty our bodies. It swings by, loading standard view balls, slurred or eviscerated by light. Human legs mutating into drumsticks. Oh, lantern, holding up a hack stop. What do you illuminate? Degrets. Image production sells us our meltdowns. We con ourselves into participation coming on and of at edges. Laughter is very, very good to the coeval populace disfigured via comparison with flow. I don't know. Numerously, flattened impact players mounting real madness and ending anti-heroically. Even sanity ain't sane today. Disinvited to play Dragon City, please. Snipers gotta stop ripping off pigeons. First vision's the vulgar one. Sadness tones given by the dark dominant. A self-portrait all ash-colored. True parasites of the object. Glad I figured out how to be kinder to my brother. Outside of any unfortunate art, please accept all my regards. Zapf explains, you got rethoughted, or verily skate ragged and rebesotted. Neutrality in shadows, misuse of shadows. When you put camouflage on, I can't see the bummer's rehab eternal. If to be is the object of resurgence merged with insurgence, will be a nice menu memory, druggy and huggies. Replacement level topless Vatican protester who stole Jesus free. I used my transfer drawing to hop on unlimited lead heads from behind, the practice shadow in a form of public. Shape contains form and moves for listeners listening to how you say you see walking get held on the avs, the sides, the gaps, the co-flats, the blocks. The periwinkle tune symbols gliding down through the locks. Regrets. For Joshua Escobar. Le leaping, new boyish, swirl-blunted cretinism subs in. Scrabble ballast muscle. To be a what costume? Clocked on. If you don't shroom slide think anyone's looking lifted from upstairs aptitude, why engage eagle oil, peanut, paper on a decision-making level, metal, photograph, fabric, wood canvas buttons, the fantasy they eventually will. Stool screams for a sack, beyond my stride, canyon adapts, special teams pan, I drop an elephant on your head module from a stone's back. No sweat without fruit fly. Thrills of soft anxiety, fused ankle, scissors in hand, only his torso was lost. All policy writers and indigo panic punt blockers jumping to touch suckers as rarities. shaky dots denying entry, resurrections, revenge, and cutout light, bobbin resurgent cowbobs, leg whips and mole space sauce sleeping at intersections out of the question's absolution. Pain in my lean's asses. Driftwood nanobots and their fake accents headbutt on the swing, spider style. Tawdry shimmies with safety features. Jarred giant centipede down 20 at the half, and then I'm joust like ads against myself half-fast. But the cat wave from what once was a planet, and the cat wave sliding across Saturn's rings, and the cat winked out of Jupiter's eyes. I had way too much fun writing those poems. I'm sorry, it's like, you're not supposed to have fun when you're a poet. I'm going to read some poems. God. Find my. Back by the bridge, facing Brooklyn above, my oversized page, sipping the dour-handed juice with a cormorant's turquoise eye and a stranger's grisly smile. I wonder, who the fuck am I to be here now alongside traffic and current and disease? And I know exactly what I am. Bare life, undrawn, mask down and mask on. Justice's floaties and probes lingering in the mental byways I cut with sky. Can I write like Coletti Monster once for future time's shake? Baseball, grant me the anonymity the marbled warbler cosplays. No one gets to get decisions made. No one's decisions. No. The words get together in the early morning and decide on who they're going to fail that day. This shit was all written during lockdown. They pick people. The people who will go on to say, language failed me today. So rude. It's true, though. Now, if you're ever talking to someone who says language failed me today, just walk away. This is an untitled poem for Bill Bergson and Robert Gluck. Vermeer was something of a visitor, ecumenical, look up, and withheld. Are they far enough apart outside? I traveled through bare life to find her dream was really in my backyard. So real life must be happening elsewhere. In the cushion on the fire, where you sit. Moving in pictures on the phone, sliding in on $2 bills, wearing the sudden address you barely refuse. To ground pork, we're all loose teeth, positing entertainment as oblivious standard. What? You don't talk to collected bits of meat? I put gray around my brain to let it breathe, I was told by Age in an interview. A vital sort of non-profession, and a refusal to intersect with the crossed-out heads peppering white space just right. They are false starts and nonetheless records of hopeful betrayal. Key lime ginger almonds hurtling up rosé hills in search of survivors. We seem behind screen to have reduced alienation to a series of gaffes. Phooey strikes back, gloriously far-flung from the point. Disguised locations. Say what's there, confined. To bed each utterance commands. It's all this ill-fitting conglomerate in the incomplete happenstance, something constantly expanding sideways in the past, free as hell from present definition. Still here for Paul and Sarah. Is it weird for Marks to be named Mark when someone says we mark the occasion? When you're named Anselm, this isn't something you think about. Even if I am thinking about it now, if this is thinking, my apologies. I was going to start this in my mind by typing, I am reverting, but I don't know in what direction. Reverting in this instance may mean thinking about dying, not what you want, but I can't help the way this is going. I don't think you can really prepare for missing someone, and then you can, and then you can't. And then that absence, in order to be itself, is always something else. To Cedar. Lake Garda's winds blow the chips out of their bowls. Another common distortion. MAG, in big white letters across a burgundy drape hanging from a castle window in the old fortress transitioning into local museum. Aperol through a straw goes down too fast, breaking squibbles in the shanks of giants. Purple pastrami layers of mountains change colors by the minute, looming as faint. In Padua, the heat is near to needles. Little lizards, reimagining the gully outside Giotto's starscape, so oddly figured as realist by the intro video and an irreality TV version of wall text. I swooned for all my anti-redemptive tendencies at the sight of Jericho's sleep, goats and an angel making a perimeter in a high-arching square of another desert. Folds of robes in the sun flats, bugging. Rearrangement requires bone fragments, if not the whole hoary skeletex. Easy to get the first drink here, the cove more brewed than bruise. You were in the hospital after a stroke, and you will see me soon in New York. This feels impossible to cut up. I can only be laid everywhere in your honor. A continuation honor burns in envy to keep up with. The second drink, suitably stronger, finally arrives, delivered by coot and crested grebe. Does war dream of war? Onada asks, in the jungle of Werner's twilight. Have I read too long? I can read a couple more. I have some new poems. All right. I know I shouldn't ask that. It's manipulative. All right. It's nice. Okay, so I just want to say that this reading is dedicated midway through to the good health of Arlo Quint, and to the retirement of Jimmy Fregosa, and to the memory of Wayne Padgett. Chicken Soda 153. I had this idea this summer that I should call all my poems Chicken Soda. It worked for 2, but okay. Sorry. "99 degrees impractically closer to autumn and needles than a just now shot of summer stench waiting for a truism train. tatted Legos playing at oblivion. You know your backpack's open, right? I do now. Or I was just letting its horizon-based ecosystems get some shabby air. My developer is all fucked up, self-describing as dead sober, a big fat giant toad tool of merch hawking drama at the Opera House, a real place, at least once or twice, by the way. I woke up thinking you alive and knew you weren't. That's an almost improvement. No phone call to put off or schedule when to accept. I'm still waiting for the hematologist, a kind man, to remember to call back. Ranking choice, where we at? Eddie just got his limbs back from the branch of meetings Medscape said he had to be at. Could have just taken out them walkers with thermal grenades, one per AT-AT, and spared the speeders. But what did rebels know in the spring snow back when it was 1980? Chicken soda, Vermont style. This is so embarrassing. If I was capable of being embarrassed, I suppose. Adiralia trifoliate Hoover. Damn, that boy can splay. An egg that is a basket chair hangs too low to the soil for cushion life. John Deere agrees from above and below, the hole waiting a decade to be plumbed. Please, no response and no consent necessary, but only I can wave toe to the unresponsive. At this point, falling is not an option. Bathtubs get frightening from the vantage of your houseboat, pool shooting adjacent to eternity. Here, have a C-note for moving on from the enormity Iris projects with words and their bafflements built from behavior. These red-backed shrikes or red-eyed vireos keep distracting me from further development of tick paranoia. I decided to drown the dog tick on my phone, then calf, then forearm, rather than bludgeoning its pesky armor with the heart-shaped piece of obsidian to my right. Who is Claire Porter? I almost want the porcupine stew, but we'll pass on the groundhog patty. The erotics of the tick chick never seem to truly manifest. Manifest? I am a poor specimen, if not an impoverished one. No thanks on the cocaine nasal spray tip. Green Ave trees jump out their trunks to cuddle with parked cars on both sides of the street. Close out heaven. These humans who love to not know, we put them in charge. We put the least interested humans in charge. The unkind, the unimaginative, the unintelligent. They are not lost. They are not disillusioned. They are barely at this point pitiable. And we put them in charge. Repeatedly. For crying out loud. Tracing trails of backpack BO, there will be no tear anywhere apparent, constructed out of bunnies, the half-whispering an object shares with its step objects, en route to earn a degree that leads to a career you love, but you are not allowed to see me seeing you stare at the system. Having hours and a lightning bolt does not turn you into Captain Marvel Jr., alas, God. We love you, or we love you, God, but only after the bombs are launched. Sisters aside, I see time as it was. Does the boat come with the bar? I don't want no fucking beads. I've always been passionate about no fees. Aerospace, please stand. I ain't no boat. Had I or we stayed longer, maybe the fall could have been prevented. But we were in this routine. The hospital visiting hours, a chosen given. You show up until someone falls over, then you keep showing up all over again to mind the bill for the body. Move it on over. I throw the book to make a skyway. Why antagonize strangers? I owe you nothing in an omelet made of kimchi fried rice from the special place, which has at least 2 other names. I hate it here. I think my arm blood is going solid and will splay it off. The hospital and the sturgeon bill separately. That's a form of intimacy. People will worry. That's the cost of a defunct public scene. I can believe Mom didn't leave a will. She always wanted me and Eddie to work bilingually with French and New York lawyers. What's life without constraints? An airplane crossword without clues. Put F everywhere. Now tell everyone on the Caterpillar ride we call the M train you wrote this without stopping. Sorry, this is very embarrassing. Okay. Scarified pavement. Is this okay? Are you cool? It's not going to go so much longer. It's all right. Okay. Scarified pavement. There's a stooge sitting in the control room. We met at a clam bake. What's a worse fate in terms of things you get called? Weasel, fink, or turkey? Do you assume or maybe even imagine goons have no feelings? Ain't that what the sacks are for? There's a thing going on now. I don't understand it. Periodically, you go through this, usually in the past, on network TV. It's some kind of dispute, probably about money. But I know for a fact it's a dispute. It's like a campaign. Not campaign, the Brooklyn Nets player, but a way to make us feel left out. Judge Judy, left in. Reality's wallpaper rips open on both sides of a hall at which interdimensional aliens are supposed to be ready to communicate the new way or offer their stems in matrimony. Megatop Phoenix style. I got that and 10 other cassettes for $1 once before our dress dissolved and the folks moved to Paris. Fuck keeping the tenement in the family. The injured are no longer adored, adorned. But for maybe and stammered when truly detectable as nuts, without the contemporary warnings, one might get handed candidate style. You know that look. They don't bother me no more. But you'll get that glad hand eye, discoordinate for years to come. I don't want this to happen, the firing of the person who did this. I just want someone to say it happened. That was said on TV, pasted back onto a scroll of complaint. The new litany. Why don't you just complain more? The dying tiger on the Bus Zoo movie. Take that dart out of your mouth. Avoided having to recite by dying. Stared at regularly in its final days by a widower, unscripting his corny confusion. Never could fetch that driver's license. In the mid-'80s, I used to take rides on the backs of buses when I should have been traveling by foot. I don't know, I should probably not have read that. All right. I know this dude, he looks sometimes like James Dean, but he's a better actor. His art gets ripped off the public spaces. He puts it on in a matter of hours and even minutes, and he landed a plane once despite exploding the hydraulics, though he flies through thought and color before air. The landings are impeccably rough, but he lands, hands directing the ever-dissolving appearance of wheels. He doesn't die in crashes. He looks out for millions of siblings, and they are all around, and I can't speak for them. Like Dr. Strange, I speak for myself. J.A., your question's deep in the depths of what depths can only barely imagine to pretend to be putting on his costume. Keep me thinking living is possible. That by itself, whatever by itself means, would be enough. But you also tilt when you should withdraw, and that is nightly too. This poem is called Doing Stuff Sucks. I take it the beginner is someone else and rank that impulse. Optimism in a slurry, someone else experiencing you beginning. The opposite of privacy being the beginner in your show. Expanding, I don't know. Moving, yes. The latest beginning I was said to share got faded in its own acknowledgement. Please keep the fatesters over there. I do not think of confusion as rapid. Hard to think of iron as hard, since my body is filled with iron and I can't feel any of it. Monument shit. I have to admit I no longer know, and things don't know what an occasion is. The unbeginner wakes in the absence of speculation, which is another fucking drag. Gives clothes away to the kids and art. Please take care of this. It was a gift, and we can't be keeping so many gifts these days. Unless someone gifts us a big unbroke home. To continue as beginner, pull the rug out from under your existence. Or don't. Is such action a happy pattern? Then you repeat without variation, as bashful stumblers go. Pitch, collision, instrument. The storage space walls need our mold-free tenderness. I lost tracks of guests. Feeling familiar, being a fourth order of gas. Can't shake this out. It really is melancholy being a beginner. LH. Lynn, I wouldn't know. Children follow. Desertion. You think that word is a thing? The study of the fucked over begins with the feeling you knew so much before you started to remember what's happening. I'm a beginner in the dark, if I'm a beginner at all. I don't think so. That's for Lynn Henchinian. All right. Okay, I'm going to read one more poem. It's called What is the Purpose of a Guinea Hen? Y'all all right? Can you handle like one more piece? Okay. Uche, I was sorry to single you out, but I was sitting somewhere and I was sitting somewhere earlier, and there was a soccer player, and I got a picture. I have to send it to you of his jersey. On the back, it said Uche 12, and I was like, Uche 12. All right, I have to record this anyway. What is the purpose of a guinea hen? The title will make sense later. I didn't have a bug on my back, but I did bring 2 dog ticks to New York from Vermont recently. You know how some words are dysfunctional? Literally is one of them. You think you're being emphatic, saying that literally happened, but it would be of greater strength and acuity to say that happened. Even if you're not especially fond of reserve, this could be said to be a matter of character, such as you are in your own works in their days. We would like to think all doctors, having taken the Hippocratic Oath, will be good at their jobs, the tasks of which at hand are many, as with poets. But I've had bad doctors and good doctors, and the difference is not hard to suss out. Pain will make you understand who's good at their job. You don't want your doctor being a 55%er. It's a term I just made up. When it comes to attention to your physical particulars. I had one surgeon have to sew up my hernias 2 times, and somehow the jobs didn't take. I don't know if he was good or bad. Sometimes it's all genetics, which feels like a cop-out, whatever that is. See you later, officer. I just figured somebody at the Poetry Project would get that joke, but sorry. You will just have these holes opening up in your belly, and that's that. Call us when the next one opens and your intestine starts poking through again. Okay. The French medical system is more humane than the American system. That is, in fact, true. Mainly because the French take money mostly out of the system's equation for you, and Americans aren't taught how to understand the practicality of such separation. That doesn't mean there aren't expenses. When our mother died recently, we had to pony up 3,200 euros for cremation, a casket, and an urn. Do you want flowers? Nah. Do you guys want music? Nah, dude. You get 30 minutes in a room to do a ceremony. Okay. Do you want to project any images? No. Do you want to come to hospital and ride in the car with the casket to Père Lachaise? No. We'll take the metro. It'll be faster. The undertaker got it. We wanted to read some poems, keep it plain, and keep the cost down. But the hospital bill after a month of Mom being there and a surgery to remove one of her kidneys and a biopsy and endless scans and tests and shots and morphine near the end we didn't see coming when her neuropathy pain was overwhelming but not enough that we couldn't keep talking about the pain, the music, the poems, our family, our friends, the state of the world as we fought to understand it, our stupid country and all its qualities, our humor, plus regular meals 3 times a day. She said they weren't bad when she could keep the food down, and kind and well-trained nurses on hand at all points, mostly. No bill. Everything was handled as matter of ordinary course. Alice never stopped talking with anyone near her. 2. Oh yeah, this is a numbered section, sorry. For now. Midway through the path of this poem, maybe I had to combine a dump with a dive. That's realism for you dumbasses out there. I'm not talking about you guys. It's just understood. It's going to get worse. I left home for college in 1989 and thought maybe, I don't know, folks would be more civilized attending university in Buffalo. Nope. Ended up living with dudes who, might have changed their ways or rehabilitated somehow since then, but man, they were so fucked up and wrong about so many things, I'm not sure I should even put them here. Like, how there are slurs that don't get used with any reclamation, words so vile in their application towards the degradation of humanity they can't even be in songs or used with complexity, which some folks might even call irony, but you don't know what that is, and yes, I'm a bitch, but here we are, afraid of words again, and I know you're there, so suck it up, audience. No one says the G word, right? Maybe some do, away from these ears, as and not like. Anyway, these guys enjoyed casual hatred so much I had to say, hey, what the fuck? And they were like, oh, you called us on our shit. And I was like, well, it hurts. I was trying to gambit. And they said, huh, but oh, you think you're better than us? And I was like, wait, no, maybe. And so they doubled up and tripled up. Imagine. And you can imagine, as soon as someone says, I can't imagine, somewhere they're shutting down. Imagine living with 3 potheads getting high every night just to say horrible things to you and cackle riotously, and you have to listen to the Grateful Dead the whole time. Bootlegs of the Dead's live shows, so many non-variations, because the Deadhead was the worst human and had the biggest stereo. Did I move out? No. Was I brave? No. Did I go back to New York City at the end of the spring and in some fucked up slow way re-embrace all the same problems and ills and scary-ass individuals that made me want to leave the city in the first place? You better fucking believe it. 3. Being a poet is very much has a lot to do with the way that little children make things. Children can make a game out of anything. And if you leave any special things lying around on the floor, the children will get them. And they'll put the milk bottle into the shoe and paper bag crammed into the milk bottle, and they'll bring it over and say, look what I made. And you say, that's really terrific. That's really great. What is it? And then they say, I don't know. What is it? Unfortunately, most of you are not little children, and if you put the milk bottle in the shoe and the paper bag in the milk bottle, you'd be geniuses, but that isn't what you'll do. What you'll do is write down about 30 boring lines about your relationship with your mother, or something, and then you'll bring it over, and you'll say, look what I made. And generally, most people will say, yuck. I can't believe it. God damn. Are you out of your mind? Why don't you go out and read Dante or something? Consequently, what you need to do, because it is very important when you make something to be able to show it to someone and have them say it is terrific, so that you will, it's necessary to get affection, love, a certain kind of understanding. It's also necessary to get encouragement, and it's necessary to be able to make a show. Like, for example, a peacock does what it goes like this. Now, I don't have a peacock to help me, but it goes like this. They just go up and say, look what I made. That's actually part of the important part, too. The peacock doesn't care. The peacock comes up and goes like this, and you say, boring, man. Send me a guinea hen. 4. I might drop Newt Barr for Durbin. I kind of want to drop him and use the bench spot for a pitcher to hold. Is that wrong? That's tough. McNeil's projection is bad this week. You can't trust anyone who puts their seat all the way back. Con Ed rushes the penny. I'm only 1 cow away. And in particular, God. I want to just say we love you. I don't, but we do, when we can't imagine what you're going through. One waits to say hello forever. Ribald hot spit on the tip of the hernia's hot spur, always on the mover's pavement getting to move, but their health caring for you, the system unsees its own lack of how things howl, not sleeve wears unbuying. Cremation shows up as a result of sudden death, and that can happen at a stride once the tubes get pulled from the throat. Mediocre gymnastics on the L train set to weaselly semi-beats. Steve Evans would decry our use of adverbs, but if you heard the passing tunes, you'd conform to this monstrous usage, indicative of poor character, and not only in the abstract, upon which one is asked to reflect getting out of bed, eyeing the latest hickey, a form of replacement scar. If the drunk photographer needs company in bed, who will not emerge to take the charge? A crying blue octopi, tentacle-free, to keep taggers away. A no-tear finally makes contact. Facts and assemblage, busy predicting the coming underground, the years they were born, the portraits of quixotic herons angrily dive-bombing the gulls in waiting. Inside, the station is freezing. Even the Galway hooker is no stage for warmth, so we watch these birds mimicking slums on the older tracks. I don't know where this comes from. I just set up cracks and name disciplines. I remember Qatar giving the president a picture plane. 5. Turns out if you run in circles with folks every day for months, at a stretch, you can make friends. I wouldn't have put it that way at the time, but that's what I think happened to me when I was 15 and 16 in high school at the prodigious public, but you have to take a test to get in, Stuyvesant of the peg leg. Horrible. Worse than whatever Brando's Kurtz went through. I mean, nobody was filming me from the head down to hide my what, but just school, okay. So I went from having 2 friends, Ulysses and Daryl, hi guys, to a bunch more and some of their friends, and every day most of us would meet up after classes were done, but before homework had to be done, and go run in circles together. The cross-country team ran in non-circles, sometimes they're longer non-ones. The reservoir at Central Park is a type of circle, but whatever those paths are in Van Cortlandt Park are not. And cross-country was a little more fun because we didn't ever need a coach. But track, indoor and outdoor, you run in circles, in incredible growing legions of pain, and you bond with the people you're running in circles with because you know it sucks together, and you're supposed to be smart. So why are you subjecting yourself to this shit? And the other athletes on other teams at Stye and other schools don't respect you, and the coach maybe respects you if he's coming around, and your former teammates who bailed don't respect you, but might pretend to. And no one watches or goes to the meets. And you won't still even go on a date until you're 3 years into college, but these are the names that I conjure when I need to remember without knowing the need is even there, when I remember who helped me start to become a person who could talk and get to know other kids and be something like happy again after some hard years. Wally, G, Danny, Carlo, Jen, John, Tito, Sumatra, Surendranath, Brian, Kathy J, Kathy M, Sylvia, Mike, Michael, James, Mervyn, David Ree, Betty, Lyle, David Sy, Anthony, Whalen, Noam, Wendy, Noel, Duncan, Coach Dennis. I have no idea where most of you are, other than in my heart and this thing I call a poem. This is the last section. That said, we should have maybe let Trump nuke that hurricane. His first time around as president. It would have been catastrophic, but I don't think he'd have been reelected. I could be wrong, but I don't think you reelect the person who nukes the hurricane. We might is all I'm suggesting now. This is a forum here for imagination. Don't forget that before you freak out on me. However, elsewhere you might be, we might be better off with a nuked hurricane and no second Trump presidency. Now, I'm just sitting here talking out loud to myself and saying really amazing things, but it's weirding out the folks around me who are noticing that I'm just talking to myself. It's late, and I'm talking out loud to myself about how weird it would be to read everything someone ever wrote. I was thinking about Ron. I don't need to read what he just wrote yesterday or what he was writing when he was 15 and his dad was a bootlegger, though I would, but not for research, just out of curiosity, which might be the same thing sometimes, but not all the time. And Ron was reading French poetry by surrealists in translation, and maybe we have to acknowledge the French are so strange to the point where someone really bonkers, like Magritte, is just another fucking guy for them. That's not true. I'm just thinking about Magritte, who is very much only who he had to be, and his mom died when he was young, and it makes me upset, but I also get it, but I can't be putting no hood over anybody's head, but I understand, And was he more of a fantast than a surrealist, as CC and PG posited in that unpublished interview I sent you, and maybe even made you read aloud from so we could talk about the difference between fantasy and enigma? Hi. I miss you too. Sort of. But really, surrealism is just a pathway to talking about baseball. The players will say it's really surreal when something cool happens and they have to talk about it live, because professional sports is almost the last live TV thing that goes on. And I'm sitting somewhere and I'm thinking, that's not surreal. That's a dream script turned into fate, turned into you. And there are no animal heads or pretend random breasts on your gear. But then for a kid who's 22 and just learning English in order to do a job that is a game that is really hard and demanding but can pay well, but you have to go to weird places to work that you wouldn't likely choose to go hang out at, and then someone puts a mic in your face in front of 50,000 people and asks you how you feel, that could be called surreal. In the song Daisy Dukes, the rapper rhymes on with on. Look at those girls with the Daisy Dukes on. They really got it going on. I remember that. And I know I can do that because they did that and got a certain amount of mileage out of jean shorts worn by Catherine Bach in a show that came on before Dallas once a week that I used to watch with Mom and Eddie. Bobby dreamed a whole season. The Dukes drove a car named the General Lee. The cops were corrupt bumblers, but deep down they were supposed to be fragments of heart. Remember when Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face? All the sports writers did. Politicians borrow sports language all the time and don't know shit about sources. Sources don't always make it to the surface. Why should they? Do you remember last year? The jacket is furniture. I have to fix all the tools. Oh, Daddy, who can stand it? What a strange life. We just keep saying things to stay. Okay, thank you.
Woo! Thank you so much, Anselm, for this incredible, beautifully durational reading. And thank you so much, Cedar, as well, for your beautiful reading. Thank you all for coming. A reminder that on November 19, we will be holding a memorial for Alice Notley in the sanctuary. So please come back for that. I also want to thank the Poetry Project staff working tonight, James at the sound table, Gary at videography, Will and Nicole as staff support, as well as all our volunteers. And thank you also for coming. Come back to the Poetry Project. Thank you.